All right. Well, I think I finally got the seals I need to move on this engine rebuild, uh, 82 931, otherwise known as a 924 turbo. So let's take a look at what I've been waiting on. So I cobbled together a couple seals here. It turns out those are the same size as a drain plug, but there's a couple of those are original. I need to reseal that. Um, Also, the main seal I've been waiting on is this one that goes in here. That hooks up to the turbo. And then there's also a sealing ring that goes up in the exhaust, in addition to a triangular gasket. So you got actually two seals on the exhaust side of the turbo. So I'm going to get in here, pull these hoses, replace those, put the seals I need into these orifices. The other place the turbo joins on is this, which will be fine. And I may have also gotten new seals for this guy. So anyway, I'm going to take it loose and look at that. Let me show you all the seals I got, because a lot of these did not come with Victor Rein's kit. So here's the ring, exhaust ring. That goes hand in hand with the exhaust gasket. It's around here somewhere. Here's on the oil feed hoses. See, it just says oil drain plug seal. So that's supposed to be the same size as like a oil drain. And then I believe those are to replace that smaller line. And there's that one that I've really been waiting on. It's very unusual size. So, and I also went ahead and ordered the big seal that goes on the throttle body, I believe. That did not come with this kit. So anyway, I've got all kinds of seals now. So let me move on, folks. Okay, so the smaller ones were for this line here. I believe that would be oil feed. And then, the two drain plug seals work fine there. So now I'm trying to find this triangular gasket that fits on there. I had it around here somewhere. It's always something. Yay, I found it. So yeah, so you got a sealing ring. It kind of nestles into the turbo itself. And then this just a regular exhaust gasket is all it is. So that and that, right? And now I need to take the new oil feed O-ring and insert it. And then there's what's the oil feed mates there, right? And then there's another under here. And I think I've already got that one started somewhere. Yeah, so that one I actually had, because it's identical to a pushrod tube sealing ring off a Porsche 914 Type 4 engine. So that is going to join onto there and connects to an oil feed hose. So it's getting a little bit busy, but I think we're going to get it together. So the key here, you'll probably remember this from the last video I did, is that, see if I can show it to you without dropping all this crap, You've got to loosen those nuts there where this part of the turbo will rotate. That's the only way you're going to get it to nestle up in there, because all these bolts intersecting and everything. So next thing I need to get this in here, get a couple of exhaust bolts started, and then the rest of it should come together. Yeah, doing this with the engine and the engine bay would be virtually impossible. It would be a nightmare. And I think I've read that on some of the posts, guys that have tried to do it and just said it's not worth it, just drop the engine. So, okay, we're getting things lined up, and I'll show you the next step. So to get these two nuts, I took that copper line off because this one back here is virtually impossible even to get it started. And I'm using locking exhaust nuts because there's just enough thread on there to get a nut on. You probably couldn't use a washer, so there you go. Okay, so to get that copper line tight, now the flare nut is down in the middle of all that stuff. It's a crow's foot is the way to go. So I have them. I don't use them often, but they can save your butt in situations like this. All right, before I get any further, I'm going to tighten up these nuts that join turbo housing. I don't know what the proper term is here, because once I get this hose fitting on there, it's going to be too jammed up. By the way, that was a 19 millimeter crow's foot. Oh joy, everything lined up to get this last fitting on. Big hose coupling here, couple of 8 millimeter bolts that thread into the whatever this is, and that's it. Now, I believe this will join into the exhaust and go to the wastegate, I would imagine. So I'm going to take a hard look at that to see. I probably should put it on. And I need to see if I got the seals for it, because I bet you they're not in that kit either. Let me grab that and we'll take a look. Houston, we have a problem. There's an elbow that goes right there. So that's coming off this part of the turbo and joins in this hard pipe. Looks like it's a vacuum. I think it goes back up to that brake booster area and all that. But the good news is I think I can work it in there. What I'm going to have to do is take it loose underneath here. You can see that bolt there on the water pump, and just kind of wiggle that pipe out far enough to where I can get that elbow in there. I really don't want to have to take all that turbo assembly off again just for an elbow. Okay, crisis averted. Yeah, just by loosening on the hard pipe and pushing it back that away, I was able to wiggle that little elbow in there. Here's a tip. Anytime you're dealing with these hose clamps in these tight spots, think about where the screw is going to end up and what tool you're going to use to tighten. Because if you get them in the wrong orientation or whatever and you got all this stuff in the way, you can't tighten them out. They don't do you any good. Also note that as you tighten, it's going to rotate the screw So generally would be away from you. And so you kind of want to orientate that to where as you rotate it and tighten it, it doesn't end up in a position where you can't get to it later. Okay, I've taken a look at the parts diagram, and so what happens is this J-pipe, the wastegate sits on top of here. So that's going to have to happen while the engine is in the car. And then joining onto the other side of the wastegate is the main exhaust pipe joins onto here, a long run, and then somewhere they tie together. So really this junction and this junction has to be done with the engine in the car. So I think I'm going to flip the engine over and move on to the intake. Okay, here's the intake. I'm glad I left associated bolts with assemblies, because that just saves a lot of trouble trying to find them. So I cleaned it up a little, but this is not a show car. I'm not too worried about it. So yeah, brackets are still there. Everything kind of works hand in hand with this. Appears to be on there. This ground, I have to look at that, because that's something I added. All right, well, we'll see. We'll pop it on there and see how it looks. Yeah, so the first thing I'm noticing, there appears to be an orientation on the intake gaskets. See how some of them are sticking out more than others? We'll pull it off and flip those and see if that corrects that issue. So yeah, there's those gaskets have two different contours. And the opening is a little bit oblong. It's almost like it's a gasket made if you were to have ported the head or something crazy. But I got everything aligned, and note that hose we were dealing with earlier actually comes off the intake. So that's a vacuum hose that routes by the water pump into the turbo. So on this initial install on the intake, you want to start that bracket bolt, because I just left the bracket attached to the intake. You want to start that down there before you start tightening these intake bolts. Now note, I just put the long ones in. I didn't do these because I'm pretty sure these back two have accessories attached to them, because they're longer than the other two. So there's no rush on that. I got to kind of sort through all those what we call accessory items, because it's a whole maze inside of there, and everything mounts in very specific places and all that crap. So I'm at a good stopping point. Also, I did find the dipstick tube, and the bracket is present. It holds it in the right place, so happy about that. So yeah, good progress today. Getting the turbo on with all fresh seals, because it was a oily mess down there from everything leaking. So hopefully we won't have that problem moving forward. And hope this was helpful to somebody. There'll be more. Thanks. All right, here's bonus segment. Got some more time this afternoon to fiddle with this. So I'm test fitting the warm-up valve, which I've got a video on reconditioning that. And then also put on the throttle body, which I found out that the seal that goes in between, it's much like this one, this red seal here, only a little bit not quite as fat. I've got to order that. It's in between the manifold and the throttle body. This vacuum regulator, I believe it is, it's a diaphragm. Its bracket mounts either side of the throttle body. Okay. So this will have to come back off to replace that seal. But what I'm finding is test fitting this stuff helps me remember how all this stuff went together. And I'm realizing what seals I need. I know I've got this big one. I ordered that. So that's no problem. So also I'm figuring out how this stuff mounts, because there's all these little brackets like this one here. What mounts there? I'm fixing to find out. It may not even be in the right place. So that's a process here that I'm going through. The warm-up valve was pretty easy. It's got this special mount just for it on the side of the intake runner. But I know there's something that goes right here, and I think it has to do, there's a whole plethora of vacuum hoses that fit in here. So I'm going to break those out and we'll see how that looks. So I'd left most of this together. And so coming off the vacuum regulator, there's two elbows. They're two different sizes. One goes to this very specific pipe that goes to the cold start valve, right? And then to the other side goes to this Y pipe. But what I'm looking at is down underneath here, there should be a mount, and I've got a remnant of a little rubber. You can see it right there in the middle of the frame. That's one of these little rubber mounts that is fractured. So that'll be easy to find. It's a plate with a nub of rubber on it somewhere around here. Otherwise, I know how all this fits in here. And I remember that your throttle switch or throttle sensor is super hard to get to once all this is put in there. By the way, all these elbows, when I originally started teching the car to get it started, I had to replace every single one of them because they were all rotted. So they're still in good shape. All right, I found the mounting plate, and yeah, you can see that fractured there. So I actually might have one of those little rubber mounts from a 928 project. So that fits right there. Looks like a couple of 6mm bolts holds it in place. Let me go look at my stash and see if I've got one of those. All right, well, I found something. So looks like it may be about twice as thick. I don't know. Let me try a test fitment, see if we can make that work. So that worked out okay. It moved this cold start valve a little bit closer to the diaphragm because it's thicker, right? But it fits. I don't think anything else is going to be monkeyed up. Save me from having to order another little part. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. I'm haven't tightened down on the elbow yet because yes, at some point I will have to take the throttle body off to put that ring in. Actually, I just need to scoot it out a ways to put that O-ring in there, so I won't really have to take all this off to do that. So I'll look up that part, and then I think the next thing I'm going to start thinking about before I get too much further, one is I need to get these 8mm nuts on the intake, because I'm pretty sure that's all the accessories. I need to figure out what goes on this bracket here, mystery bracket, and maybe go ahead and lay the engine harness in there, because yeah, it gets really tough to make connections with all this stuff going on. So yeah, just start thinking about that, taking shit off the shelf and sticking it on the engine. It's so much easier with it on a stand, whether it versus it being in the car. All right, that's the end of the bonus section. Thank you.